Well, there comes a time where it's all been done. You know what I mean? And there's
Yes.
that can converse in the language of what's been, and they're respectful of that, and that's cool. And then there's the other thing of saying, man, there's all this stuff that's been out there. It's all been done a million different ways. Let's throw it in the pot, be reverent to what has been.
Yes.
And then, but serve up a new souffle and throw it on the wall and feast, as they hate. But yeah, I totally agree with you. But I think, your ethos, if you will, about that comes through in your playing, with your ability to be able to wear those different shoes and have it really be right. Because, there's a lot of, there's just so much nougat in roots music that a lot of people overlook. They see the structure, but they don't see what keeps the structure integral. You know what I mean? And as a result, if you ask a guy who maybe is more of a jazz individual that prides himself that way, they think, well, rock is this. Oh, I've played in a rock band back in the day. And then you do some kind of, down and dirty, greasy rock tune, and it sounds as square as the day is long. So, but yeah, to your point, that's what makes the mighty Roscoe Beck such a thing.
You wrote a song called "Can't Get There From Here."
Yes.
And I'm just going to use that line to say, you can't get there without having been there.
Right.
All of these forms of music we're talking about, there's great depth within and history. Yeah. And if you don't dig deep, well, you're doing yourself a disservice, for one.
Right.
Because you'll never really understand the profundity of the music. And if you don't understand it, you can't really play it. You can only play some facsimile of it. And I guess, going back to my childhood, like I said, I liked everything.
Right.
At some point later on, we develop our biases, and I'll admit, I probably became this or that kind of snob at one time or another, blues snob, jazz snob, this or that. But eventually I got back to the way of thinking I had as a child, that like, it's all good,
Right.
it's all valid. And you can't dismiss blues as, some simple music, and you can't dismiss country music as some simple music. If one were to do that, you've missed the point entirely.
Right, exactly.
So yes, an open mind, and you can't get there from here unless you've done that homework, and unless you've dug deep into them, unless you've listened to those blues records, unless you've absorbed those jazz records, and unless you've really dug deep into the country records, unless you've understood what the power and majesty of rock is really about,
right,
and where it came from,
right, exactly,
and that Chuck Berry was really heavy.
Yeah, he was into some weird stuff, if we're honest, but that's all right.
Well, we're going another direction.
What's interesting at this point in time is that, the access to information and to research the roots of music. I mean, we're in the absolute heyday. I mean, remember back when you'd get like a Guitar Player magazine back in the day, and you'd be some new guy that you really were into, and he would name some influences, and you're like, who the hell's that? And unless you were like a real ardent, like, let's look it up in a strange catalog and be able to send away for these records. If you weren't that kind of person, you just waited to the chance where you would happen upon it in your local cool record store. But nowadays, literally, I was reading this semi-recent Django Reinhardt book, and it was like, well, Django was listen to this guy and listen to this guy, and his first record he made was that. You can literally go on YouTube and hear all of that stuff, and you will leave it. Someone has either posted the just the audio, or you can actually see video, whatever video exists of people playing it or other people playing the stuff. It's an absolutely crazy time, but it amazes me how unadventurous people are. That's why I always, when people, I'm online and people ask the same questions over and over again, I'll say, if only there was a device that we had in our hands that we could have access to all the knowledge that's ever been currently available in one flip. But
it could be argued that it's too easy now.
Well, you still got to put the time in, though. And that's what people I don't think thoroughly realize is that. Mm-hmm. One of the things I think is a lot of fun is that, there'll be stuff in my mind that's been stockpiled. I was like, man, one of these days I really want to learn that. But I'll sit down with the record and I can't quite hear it right. And I'm like, I don't want to slow it down. I just, so I'll have these little things in my mind. And nowadays I'll just be like, I wonder if there's a transcription for that. You know what I mean? And then I'll just see the transcription and I'll go, that's weird, And then at least the learning of it, the sitting down is gone, and then you just digest it. And then, of course, I won't play it the same way twice anyway. But it's fun to be able to at least have that immense amount of time that we used to sit down just trying to figure out the notes through the weird fidelity or whatever technology we had, especially records back in the day. That was a nightmare. But anyways, I digress. But yeah,
I wax a little nostalgic about those times, actually, when the only thing you could do was drop the needle.
Yes.
I learned an awful lot by dropping the needle.
As did I, for sure.
Playing the records and sometimes resorting to taking the reel-to-reel recorder, recording the record and halving the speed.
Right. You were more resourceful than I was like, close enough.
No, I actually, at one point, Jaco's Punk Jazz, his song Punk Jazz, which is just notes flying by, very abstract sounding at first listening.
Right.
And I heard that and I went, I got to understand what's going on here. And it was just flying by too fast for me to hear.
Sure.
And that was still in the time when it was LPs and tape recorders for me. So that's one of them that I slowed down half speed to learn note for note. And it was a bear, I'm telling you. But I went, I have to find out what he's doing here.
Sure. I get it.
Yeah. And, that's one for bass players I'd recommend. Learn that one. Wow. That's a tough one.